Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a land far away, where magic and sorcery sizzled and whooshed in the air, there lived a young man named Aladdin. He had no family and he was poor, but he was clever and determined that his life would one day change. One day, when Aladdin was just about to dip his hand into the pocket of an unsuspecting shopper in the marketplace, an older man approached him and said, "Dear boy, it's me, your long-lost uncle." Aladdin took one look at him and said, "Uncle? I didn't even know I had an uncle." "Long lost, remember?" the man said. Aladdin tilted his head to the side and scrutinized the man. "We don't look very alike," he said. A distant uncle," the man said quickly, and Aladdin shrugged his shoulders. "My dearest nephew, I am in need of your help. I have found a cave full of riches, but I'm too old and weak to make the journey inside. Will you help me?" Aladdin narrowed his eyes. "So I do all the work and we half the treasure." "Oh no," the man said. "I only want one small thing, a lamp. The rest is yours." Well, Aladdin thought the man mad. All that treasure, and he just wanted a measly lamp. But he wasn't about to question it, so he shook the man's hand and they set off. They reached the cave by nightfall, and the man waited outside while Aladdin slipped through the entryway with a flaming torch to light his path. It was cold and damp inside, and the cave seemed to reach deep into the mountainside, with passages that twisted and turned, until finally he came upon a huge chamber, shining with golden light and full from top to bottom with treasure. His mouth fell open in awe, and he started to fill his pockets with golden coins and jewels as big as his fist. He found the lamp on a plinth, a shaft of light from the top of the cave bathing it in white glowing light. Aladdin took it in his hands and felt a jolt of magic that went right through him and made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He realised why his uncle wanted it so much. Aladdin arrived back at the mouth of the cave to find his uncle there, blocking the way. "The lamp," he said, holding out his hand, his face suddenly without a shred of the friendliness that was there before. Aladdin hesitated. He realised in that moment that this man wasn't his uncle. He was only using Aladdin to retrieve the magic lamp for him. Aladdin had his own life to think about, and so he lifted his chin bravely and said, "No." The old man flew into a rage, and Aladdin saw a sizzle of magic burst from his gnarled old fingertips, and suddenly rocks began to fall, blocking the way out. Aladdin was trapped. And even worse, his pockets were now empty, and the chamber that was once full of treasure was now as cold and dark and empty as the rest of the cave. Aladdin decided to sit and sulk for a bit. What else could he do? He took the lamp out of his pocket again and looked at it. He shook it. Nothing. He blew into it. Nothing. He even spoke to it. Nothing. Finally, there was nothing else he could do, and he was so bored, that he decided to clean it. As soon as he rubbed the lamp, a genie appeared in a puff of glittering smoke. Aladdin jumped behind his rock in fear. The genie laughed a booming laugh and said, "There's nothing to fear, Aladdin. I can grant any wish you like." Aladdin recovered quickly and said, "I wish to be zapped from this cave to my own personal palace, full of treasure and servants and delicious food, as a powerful and happy man." The genie raised an eyebrow. "That kind of sounds like 3 or 4 wishes in one, but whatever, let's go." And no sooner had he said it, but he clicked his fingers, and Aladdin found himself in a beautiful palace, even more ornate and opulent than he had imagined, surrounded by sparkling treasure, a huge feast, and 100 servants at his beck and call. "Not bad," he said to the genie, who raised an eyebrow again and said, "I'm not done yet. 3, 2, 1. There was a knock on the door. It was the king of the land, there to offer Aladdin a job as a royal advisor. Aladdin quickly agreed, overjoyed at the chance to make some changes to the way the kingdom worked, especially for those who didn't have enough. Working with the king also meant that Aladdin got to know the princess, and they began to fall in love. Aladdin couldn't be happier, and he knew that he had the genie to thank for everything. But one day, when he went home to his palace, he noticed that the magic lamp was missing. He looked everywhere for it, but found nothing. As he was looking around his palace, he noticed things starting to disappear. First, the carpets and the curtains. Then, the tables, chairs and beds. And then the walls and ceiling started to disappear until Aladdin was standing on an empty patch of bare earth where his home used to be. He ran to the princess, who was kind and wise and always seemed to have the answer. He told her the truth about everything: his old life, his uncle, and finally, the genie. "Don't worry," she said, and she showed him a giant ruby ring she wore on her finger. She rubbed it gently and a genie appeared in a puff of smoke. "I've had this ring since I was a baby. A few months ago, I wished for love, and the next day, you arrived." Together, they wished for Aladdin's lamp back, and in a flash, Aladdin's fake uncle appeared, grasping the lamp and looking around him in shock. He had been the one to steal it, and he had used a wish to steal Aladdin's palace and everything in it. Aladdin took the lamp back and rubbed it to release the genie. The genie took one scathing look at the old man and whispered in Aladdin's ear. Aladdin grinned and said, "Great idea. I wish for this man to be turned into a goat." And no sooner had the words left his mouth, but it was done, and they turned him out to pasture with the rest of the goats. Aladdin's palace came back just as it was before, and he and the princess moved in together straight away. Their two genies moved into the lamp too, and lived the rest of their infinite existences together. They are living there still, granting wishes, but only to those who truly deserve it. Maybe one day they'll grant one for you. Peter and the Wolf. Once upon a time, at the edge of a quiet forest, there lived a boy named Peter. Peter wasn't one for sitting around. Oh no, he was always off on some adventure, climbing trees, chasing butterflies, or seeing how far he could skip a stone across the pond. Peter lived with his grandpa, a grumpy sort of fellow, but mostly just loved Peter to bits. Grandpa was always reminding him, "Don't go wandering out beyond the garden gate. It's dangerous out there." He'd wag his finger and talk about the wolf that prowled in the forest. Peter didn't really believe in this wolf. He'd never seen it, not even a paw print. Probably just a big dog, he thought, shrugging. But he did dream of the wolf. He would dream about it sneaking in through his window or waiting for him on his way to school. He had to know for sure if the wolf was real. So one sunny morning, when Peter saw the garden gate was slightly open, he thought, what could go wrong? And slipped outside. Peter hadn't gone far when he bumped into a little robin, fluttering from branch to branch.
"Tweet, tweet! What's up, Peter?"
chirped the robin. "Oh, you know, just exploring," Peter said casually, as though he didn't have strict instructions to stay inside. The robin tilted its head.
"You're pretty brave. What about the wolf?"
Peter snorted. "There's no wolf."
"Suit yourself,"
said the robin, hopping from tree to tree beside him. Just then, a duck waddled up, quacking loudly. "Peter, what are you doing outside the garden?" the duck demanded. "Same as you," Peter said, hands on his hips. "Well, I'm out here because the pond inside is boring," huffed the duck.
"It's a shame you can't just fly away like me,"
the robin taunted.
"It must be such a sad little life, just bobbing around in that muddy little pond."
The duck quacked indignantly at the robin and flapped his wings crossly, and before you knew it, the robin and the duck were arguing. Peter rolled his eyes. All right, calm down, you two." As the robin and the duck squabbled, Peter heard a soft meow. "Trouble brewing, Peter?" purred a sleek black cat slinking towards them. "Nah, just these two bird brains," Peter replied. The cat's eyes gleamed. "That little robin looks tasty." "Don't even think about it," warned Peter. The robin fluffed up his feathers, offended.
Excuse me? You choke on me, furball.
Before the cat could pounce, Peter raised his voice. "Enough! Let's all just..." But then, a deep, low growl rolled through the trees like thunder. Peter froze. The robin froze. The duck froze mid-quack. Even the cat, who was usually too cool to care, froze. Out from the shadows with golden eyes that gleamed like fire, stepped the wolf. "Whoa," whispered Peter. "Okay, so Grandpa really wasn't kidding." The wolf licked its lips, his eyes flicking from one delicious morsel to the next. The robin, the duck, the cat and Peter didn't waste another second. They each turned and fled. The duck flapped and waddled as fast as it could toward the pond. The robin zipped up to a high branch. The cat bolted to the nearest tree and scrambled up like its life depended on it, which it definitely did. But Peter, he grabbed a thick branch and stood his ground. "You're not getting past me," he said, though his heart was pounding like a drum. The wolf lunged, snapping its jaws, but Peter was quick. He dodged left, then right, swinging his branch like a knight with a sword.
Over here!
Shouted the robin, flapping and diving at the wolf's head to distract it. Peter spotted a rope hanging from a tree. An idea struck him like lightning. He grabbed the rope, climbed the tree faster than he thought possible, and tied a loop. "Hey, big bad wolf!" Peter shouted. The wolf snarled and leapt towards him, but Peter dropped the loop right over its head and shoulders. With a mighty tug, he pulled the rope tight around the wolf's middle. The wolf thrashed and growled, but it was stuck, swinging upside down from the tree branch. Just then, Peter heard a familiar voice shouting, "Peter, where are you?" It was Grandpa, running towards him with a group of hunters. They stopped short, staring in amazement at the sight of Peter holding the rope, and the wolf tied up like a big furry package. "You caught it?" one hunter asked, jaw dropped. Peter grinned. "Well, I had some help," he said, nodding to the robin, duck and cat, who all looked pretty pleased with themselves. Grandpa sighed, shaking his head. "Peter, you're grounded for a week." Peter frowned. And, Grandpa added with a wink, "you're the bravest kid I know." The hunters carefully tied the wolf up and were about to take it away when the wolf looked up at Peter, fear and desperation in his yellow eyes. "Wait," Peter said. "What are you going to do with him?" The hunters looked grave. One of them knelt down before Peter and put his hand on his shoulder. "This wolf won't be a danger to you anymore, young man." "You're not going to hurt him, are you?" Peter asked, his eyes wide with shock. The hunter shifted from one foot to the other and couldn't seem to meet Peter's eye. "There must be another way," Peter said. He thought, and just as before, an idea hit him like lightning. "What about the zoo?" he said suddenly. "They have lovely big enclosures and lots of other wolves, and he would be comfortable and well fed, and we would be safe from him, and he would be safe from us. Could that work?" The hunters smiled and said, "Yes, Peter, that would work." The wolf looked at Peter again, and he swore he could see the relief and gratitude in the wolf's eyes. Peter stepped towards the wolf, dodging Grandpa's hand that tried to pull him back, and he reached out to stroke the wolf's soft fur. The wolf stayed perfectly still. "Okay," Peter said gently, turning to the hunters. "You can take him." So the hunters took the wolf away, and Peter returned to the garden, where Grandpa made a big pot of soup to celebrate. The robin stayed to share the crumbs, and the duck quacked about its narrow escape, and the cat curled up by the fire like nothing had happened. But Peter still dreamed of the wolf every night, wondering if he had made the right decision, hoping that he really was having a good life in the zoo. A year later, Peter and his grandfather visited the zoo together. They rushed past the naughty monkeys, the towering giraffes and the ferocious tigers, until they reached the wolf enclosure. They watched and waited, and finally they saw the wolf from the forest, step out tentatively from his den, followed by a slightly smaller wolf. The smaller one nuzzled his neck and then turned her head to look back into the den. And 3 fluffy little cubs tumbled and rolled out one by one. They jumped and pawed at the wolf, tugging his ears and licking his face. Peter and his grandfather laughed, and the wolf looked up at Peter, recognition shining in his eyes. He stared for a long time and then dipped his chin at Peter, who nodded back. That night, Peter dreamed of the wolf. He dreamed of riding on the wolf's back, his hands dug deep into the wolf's fur, holding tight, racing through the forest, the wind whipping his face. After that, he never dreamed of the wolf again, because he knew for a fact that he had done the right thing. And so, Peter and the wolf lived happily ever after. Jack and the Beanstalk. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jack who lived with his mother in a cramped little cottage on a small farm. They didn't have much, only a cow and each other. Jack was a sweet boy who always tried his best, but he was a little forgetful and he didn't always make the most sensible choices. He let the chickens run away. He forgot to collect the harvest. He even crashed the cart. Like I say, he meant well. All they had left was the cow, and she no longer gave them enough milk, and so Jack's mother decided they must sell her. Jack's mother wanted to trust him to do a good job. She really did. So she let him go, telling him, "Don't take less than 5 silver pieces for her." Jack took the cow and set off for the market. He practiced what he would say in his head all the way. "I won't take less than 5. I won't take less than 5. He came across an old man sitting on a rock by the side of the road. He looked a bit grubby and a bit strange, but the man said, "That's a very nice cow. Are you selling her?" Jack blurted out, "I won't take less than 5. The old man said, "Done," and handed Jack a little jingling coin purse. Well, that was easy, Jack thought. He couldn't believe his luck, and off he skipped back down the road to the farm to tell his mother. "That was easy," she said as he came hurtling through the door. "I met a man on the road and he bought her straight away. I just said, 'I won't take less than 5, just like you told me, and he didn't even argue. He just gave me the coin purse and I ran off before he could change his mind. I did it, Mother!" "What do you mean he gave you the coin purse? Did you count the money, Jack? Did you even look inside?" Jack opened his mouth to answer, but no sound came out as he realised that no, he hadn't counted the money, and no, he hadn't looked inside. He watched as his mother pulled open the purse strings and tipped it upside down into her open palm. Jack's world came crashing down as he looked at what his mother held in her hand. Well, there were 5, so at least that was something. But not silver pieces. Not even coppers. No, not coins at all, but beans. 5 measly beans. He looked at his mother, and she looked at him, and her disappointment just about broke his heart. She didn't say a word, just stomped out of the house, throwing the beans on the ground as she went. Jack just went right to bed without any supper, because there wasn't any. What would they do now? Tomorrow, he decided, he would leave the farm, and he would not return until he found a good job so he could take care of them both. In the morning, he got up and had breakfast and tried to open the front door, but there, blocking the doorway, was a wall of green. He poked his head out of the window and found a beanstalk, but not just any beanstalk, it was huge. It was as thick as an oak tree, and its leaves were as big as wagon wheels. It grew up and up and up so high that it touched the clouds, and it just kept going. Jack wasn't very clever, but he was quite brave, so he started to climb. Along the way, he found beans, lovely green beans that were the sweetest, most delicious beans he had ever tasted, and they were enormous. Each one was as long as one of his legs. Up he went through the clouds until his head popped out above them, and what he saw took his breath away. A magical land above the clouds, where everything was as unnaturally large as the beanstalk. Flowers as big as trees as big as mountains, and a castle as big as, well, an even bigger mountain. Jack had never seen anything bigger than a mountain, so he had nothing to compare it to. Jack took a deep breath and snuck into the castle to explore. 2 things were clear about the person that lived there. They were very big and very rich. Piles of gold were everywhere, huge golden coins as big as Jack's face. Solid gold eggs lay scattered across the floor. Jack didn't waste any time. He picked up as much gold as he could carry, which was only 2 coins, and ran back to the beanstalk. This was enough gold to buy them a castle of their own. He stopped at the top of the beanstalk and dropped the coins down, knowing they would be waiting at the bottom when he climbed down. I wish I could say Jack stopped there, but, being Jack, he made a not very sensible choice, and he went back for more. Sneaking through the piles of gold, he heard beautiful music, and as he rounded a corner he saw a beautiful golden harp playing the sweetest music he had ever heard, all by itself. Next to it was a hen. It looked ordinary enough, but as he watched, the hen laid a solid gold egg and then just got up and wandered off as if that was a totally normal thing to do. Jack stepped closer, but as he did, a deafening voice boomed through the castle.
Fee, fi, fo, fum, the thief in my castle had better run.
Jack grabbed the hen under one arm and the harp under the other and ran. The voice continued.
Fum, fo, fi, fee, there's no other giant as scary as me.
As he neared the beanstalk, the huge castle doors crashed open and the giantest giant appeared and started to chase Jack, his thunderous footsteps shaking the ground. Jack jumped for the beanstalk and slid down it, still with the hen and the harp tucked under his arms. He slid all the way down, and as he neared the bottom, he could see his mother waiting there for him, shock all over her face. "Mother, get the axe, quick!" he shouted. He leaped the last few feet and started hacking at the beanstalk with the axe. He could see the giant's feet and then legs descending through the clouds.
Wait!
Shouted the giant. Jack looked up in surprise.
Don't chop down the beanstalk, you'll kill me!
Jack didn't know what to say. That was sort of the point.
I just want my chicken back. You stole her.
The giant sounded sad.
She's my chicken.
Jack looked at the chicken, and she seemed sad too.
Just give me the chicken and I'll go home. No questions asked. Then you can chop down the beanstalk.
Jack thought for a moment. "Okay," he said. The giant's hand came down and carefully picked up the chicken. The chicken squawked at Jack, and Jack reluctantly handed over the harp too. The giant went back up the beanstalk, and when Jack was sure he was safely back at the top, he chopped the great beanstalk down. Jack and his mother harvested all the incredible beans and sold them at the market, and people came from far and wide to buy them. Oh, and in case you were wondering about those giant golden coins that Jack threw down, don't worry, they found them. And do you know what his mother said? "You really are a clever boy, Jack." The Princess and the Pea. Once upon a time, there was a handsome prince who lived in a vast kingdom. He was searching for a princess to marry, as was the law at the time, but he was finding it very tricky indeed. There were many women in the kingdom who thought marrying a prince sounded rather nice, and so they would come to the palace in their finest clothes and jewels to try their luck. But it always turned out that they weren't real princesses, just pretending, so they could live in a palace and have servants and maids, not to mention the appeal of marrying the extremely handsome prince. This went on for such a long time that the prince had almost given up the idea of ever finding love, let alone getting married. Until, one stormy night, everything changed. The wind was howling and the rain was dashing down on the palace. Lightning flashed and thunder crashed through the skies. The prince and his parents, the king and queen, were safe inside, keeping warm by the fire. Above the rumble of thunder and the ferocious wind, they heard a loud bang at the palace door. They heaved open the door to find a cloaked figure, soaking wet and shivering on the doorstep, their hood pulled low to conceal their face. "Who are you?" asked the prince. The figure pulled back the hood to reveal a beautiful woman with flowing black hair and deep brown eyes. "I'm a princess. I was passing by your palace when I got caught in the storm," she replied. "May I shelter here until it's safe to continue my journey?" The prince was utterly taken by her beauty and grace and immediately said, "Of course." The king and queen glanced at each other suspiciously. Another woman trying her luck, they thought. We must be careful. We couldn't bear for him to be tricked. The queen showed the woman to a guest bedroom and instructed her servants to draw a hot bath and fetch some warm, dry clothes for the so-called princess. "Just relax, and when you're ready, you may come to the dining room for a hot meal." The woman was very grateful and thanked the queen for her kindness. While the woman bathed and dressed, the queen instructed her servants again. "If that is a real princess, she will have lived in luxury her whole life. Every blanket will have been the softest wool, every pillow the plushest feathers, and her bed will have been like sleeping on a cloud. You must fetch 20 of the most comfortable mattresses in the palace and stack them one on top of the other, and underneath them all you will place one hard little pea. Then we shall know if she truly is who she claims to be." Sitting around the table that evening while they enjoyed a decadent meal, the prince and princess chatted away as if they'd known one another for years. They laughed and joked, and the king and queen exchanged a hopeful look. If she really was a princess, then their beloved son would not only have a wife and one day a queen, but he could truly be happy and in love. After the meal, the princess yawned and excused herself to go to bed. She said goodnight to her generous hosts and climbed the stairs up to her room. When she opened the door, she was shocked to see the bed reaching almost to the ceiling, with a ladder stretching to the top for her to climb. Exhaustedly, she climbed to the top and flopped down among the blankets and pillows, sure that she would sleep like a baby, especially with the ache of her tired muscles and the delicious meal filling her belly. Downstairs, the queen told the prince about the test she had set for the princess. "Mother," he said, "what a cruel trick! The poor princess must be exhausted, and now she will be tossing and turning all night, unable to get comfortable." "We shall see," the queen said. The prince lay awake all night thinking about the woman, hoping that she would pass the test. This incredible woman who had just appeared in his life like magic and was just utterly perfect for him. He didn't want to be lonely anymore, and even more, he wanted to be not lonely with her. Finally, morning came, and the woman joined the king, queen, and prince for breakfast. Over their bacon and eggs, the queen asked casually, "How did you sleep, dear?" The princess responded politely, "Very well, thank you, Your Majesty." The prince's face fell in disappointment. The queen met his eye and shook her head sadly. The prince looked at the beautiful young woman beside him, and he decided there and then that this ridiculous law that says a prince must only marry a princess was old-fashioned and snobby, and he must demand that it be changed immediately. He took a deep breath and was about to get to his feet to tell the king and queen exactly how he felt about the whole thing, when the princess spoke again. "Well, there was one thing." He looked at her with hope blazing in his eyes, and she shifted nervously in her seat. "I would hate to be rude or ungrateful, but I must make you aware, in case other royals use that room when they come to stay. There was a tiny little bump in the bed." The prince jumped to his feet in pure joy, and the queen clapped her hands together with glee. All she had ever wanted was for her son to be happy, and now her dream could come true. The king leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile on his face. The princess stared at the three of them, confused. So, the uncomfortable bed is a good thing? Yes, it's wonderful, said the Queen. It's the best news I've ever heard, the Prince said. The Princess was relieved that they didn't think she was terribly rude, especially the Prince, whom she had come to like very much indeed. She liked him so much, she didn't really want to leave. Would you like to stay a little longer, Princess? The Prince asked. I would, she replied. Only, we'll fix the bed right away, the Queen assured her, and the Princess smiled with relief. The Princess did stay a little longer, and then a lot longer. And then they invited her father and mother, the King and Queen of a faraway land, to visit. And after watching them together, they all agreed that the Prince and Princess were absolutely perfect for each other, and that they should stop wasting their time and just get married already. The wedding was the happiest day either of their two kingdoms had ever known, and the Prince and Princess danced long into the night, even after everyone else had gone home. They lived long and happy lives together, and they made sure that the silly law was changed, so that their sons and daughters could marry whoever they liked. Whether they were a prince, a princess, a baker or a bin man, they would marry for love, and that was that. And they all lived happily ever after. The end. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this magical story. If you want to come along on more of our adventures, make sure you subscribe to our channel. There's so much more to be discovered. You can start right now by clicking on our channel and picking your next favourite tale. There really is something for everyone, from daring heroes and mischievous creatures to magical lands and secret wonders. And remember, by subscribing, you'll be the first to know when a brand new story is ready to be enjoyed. Let's go.